is the Big 12 healthy? In the grand scheme of things, you look at the college football playoff, you look at the Big 12 compared to the ACC, which is obviously I think they're most comparable, their best comp. I think the Big 12 is fine. Is the Big 12 thriving? I think the answer is an unequivocal no, it's not thriving. And you look at this comparison between the ACC and the Big 12. They're both basketball powerhouses. But it is unthinkable to me that here we sit on the Tuesday after the college football playoff selection Sunday show, and you have the ACC with not one but two teams in, and you have the Big 12 with one team in. And it's something we've talked about all year, right? That the Big 12 had very little margin for error. I think in November when BYU lost that first game, we had a real candid discussion that now the path to getting multiple teams into the college football playoff was slim, and it turned out to be none. That Arizona State went on to win the conference championship, got the first round bye, but only one Big 12 team gets in. I don't think that you can sit here and tell the truth. And we talk about it all the time on this show that we pride ourselves in being the truth in sports talk. I don't think, Jake, for 1 minute that you can sit here and pronounce that the Big 12 is quote unquote thriving or healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you use the word thriving or healthy, it indicates that everything is, doing really well, right? Like that you have enough presence in the college football playoff, you're winning enough games in the tournament, March Madness tournament, the college basketball tournament, and you're making a lot of money and everything's awesome. But unfortunately, I don't think we can say that about the Big 12 or, frankly, the ACC. And I know everyone likes to compare the two. But to me, I think the biggest issue is that, the Big 12 is still trying to find a way to win when it matters most late in the year and in the tournament. If we think about last tournament, you had a big presence. You had, I think it was like 8 teams got into the bracket. But you had a ton of one and dones. No, you didn't have a Big 12 team go super deep into the tournament. And that's what was difficult about that. And then obviously this year with the college football playoff, you're just going to get your conference champion in Arizona State. And I love me some Kenny Dillingham and Scattaboo and everybody. But I sit here and I say, man, the Big 12 has to be able to improve and move forward. And so when I hear Brett Yormark talking about how, the Big 12 is in a great place and he loves where the conference is at and we're moving in the right direction, I don't necessarily believe that Brett is 100% sold on those talking points. I think that that's what he's got to say as the commissioner, and that he's well aware of the fact that they have a lot of work to do.
Let's hear from Brett Yormark, because I think that this flew under the radar. And one of the big questions floating around college football right now is, do we need a super league? I think an overreaction this weekend in the press conference from Brett Yormark was, many people assume that Brett Yormark said, I am not in favor of a super league. Do you believe that is what Brett Yormark said right here?
College football is very healthy right now. Saturdays are almost bigger than Sundays. Look at the media attention that's out there. It's a big business, and it's very visible, and it's only getting bigger. I'm not a firm believer in third-party intervention. I think when and if the model has to change, we as an industry, led by the Power 4 commissioners and our media partners, need to come together and figure out what's that next model look like. There was a meeting this week, obviously. I advocate, for my board to listen and learn. But where I sit today, I'm not supportive of third-party intervention. I'm just not. And I haven't seen anything that they've come up with that we can't do ourselves.
That is certainly not a no to a super league. I think, and I'm not speaking for you. Is he saying no to a super league?
I don't think he's saying no at all. I think he is in fact saying the sport needs to be moved forward, but that
needs a next step.
Yeah, there's a next thing,
yeah.
But that he doesn't feel like college football and the parties that are currently involved need what he calls third-party intervention. In simple terms, we don't need huge money to come in and take control.
Right.
What we need is money to come in and help push us forward with what we're trying to do already. In other words, what we talked about, and I think it was last week or the week before, essentially, the way the NFL goes about it. Hey, you want to invest in our sport? Awesome. We want that cash flow. So we're going to sell, like in the NFL, we're going to sell shares of our
10%.
franchise, 10% to, interested parties. And so the hard part with that, though, is that with college football, are you selling shares of a conference? Are you selling shares of a school? Well, certainly not of a school. So that's where I think you have that challenge come in, and that's what they need to create. They need to create a system where interested third parties can come in and invest.
Would you rather be the ACC or the Big 12?
I'd rather be the Big 12.
I think it's not close.
I think that the ACC really struggles on the football field. I think the hard part is, and this is seemingly, it always happens this way in life, I feel like, the ACC is not nearly as strong of a conference on the football field. The problem is that Miami and Florida State have been hotter brands the last couple of seasons. Clemson has been a contributor. And so
recent generational championships.
So you've got 3 schools out of how many ever teams are in the ACC now, who have won national championships and have had a presence in the college football playoff. But in totality, the league is not nearly as strong as the Big 12.
And I think that that's the bigger point. And I think when we talk about these things, I know people get upset when I say the SEC is the best conference in college football. It's because they have brands, they have dominations, they have dynasties. Who's the dynasty, even before Texas and Oklahoma left? Who's the dynasty in the Big 12? Who's the football dynasty in the ACC? I don't know that what Dabo did at Clemson would be considered a dynasty.
I think when they had won that national championship at Clemson, people thought, okay, Dabo and Clemson, they're on that fast track. It's going to be, Dabo's a guy in the ACC. It's going to be Saban and Kirby in the SEC.
Right.
It's going to be Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh in the Big Ten. And then it's going to be Sark in Texas. And then maybe Oklahoma once in a while out of the Big 12. But obviously, so much has shifted with the Pac-12 and with Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC that I think the problem is it's left the Big 12 in a place where, as we've talked about, you don't have a flagship brand. And the problem is that, and again, it's no shade to Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State as a brand, but you're not the brand that Texas was. And you can't escape that.
And I think that's the heart. But we're talking about Dabo winning national championships less than 10 years ago, 2016 and 2018.
Yeah.
2018, the undefeated year, 15-0.
Yeah.
You don't have that in the Big 12. And I think that matters. I think, with all due respect to our friends, in Provo at BYU, 1984 is a hell of a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you look at this conference, and I'm trying to be objective and tell you, I don't believe that the Big 12 is safe. I don't believe that the Big 12 can rest on its current, foundation. I just don't think that's realistic. I would rather be the Big 12 because I look at these lawsuits and the infighting and the revenue that's going to lawyers instead of schools and student athletes. I think that's a real problem still that is yet to be determined. I look at these house settlements, your brands in the Big 12, middle down, you still have big brands there. Are they succeeding right now? Certainly not. But if I look at the ACC and I look at those brands midway down, those are small brands that are not competing. The Pitts of the world, the Virginias, the Virginia Techs, the bottom half of this league in the ACC is not thriving. It's not wildly successful. It's the ACC. I don't think you can even argue the ACC is a basketball league. Is the Big 12 a hell of a basketball league? I think the best basketball league, but it also plays really good football. I don't think that you can look at SMU's run to the top of this conference right now and say to yourself, man, how is SMU taking a recent national champion to the brink? And really, the huge mistakes by SMU and Clemson in that game is the only reason that Clemson won.
Right.
That's the thing that is so troubling for me. And when I put the two conferences next to each other, I say to myself, I just think that Brett Yormark and his presidents are more aggressive. And Brett Yormark's a better, more forward-thinking leader and revenue generator than what you have with Jim Phillips and his crew in the ACC.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that the ACC's dealt with legal battle after legal battle, and that's weakened their position. And I think that, the Big 12 is dealing with smaller problems in the ACC, and that's the challenge, is that your issues in the Big 12 are on the field related. They're not, hey,
Yeah.
who are we fighting in the courtroom?
And I look at the ACC, Florida State. Can we all just agree that, I would think next year's a different year.
I would think.
Okay.
We'll see what they do with Norvell.
But again, and I'm not trying to pick on Oak State, James, or anybody else, or Oak State. This is why when we talk about, hey, we're going to give him a pay cut and we're going to hire and who's going to have a bounce back year next year, Florida State or Oklahoma State? Well, I'm going to take Florida State.
Right.
You are two powerful coordinators and you're bringing talent in there. So I'm going to say, yeah, I think it's Florida State. But I look at Stanford, Wake Forest, Cal, Virginia, North Carolina football, Bill Belichick be damned, NC State, Pitt, Boston College, Virginia. Those are all bad brands. Those are all bad brands. Anybody see Malik Murphy transferring from Duke? That's not great for Duke. And then I have a lot of respect for what Georgia Tech did. I have a lot of respect for what Georgia Tech did. I have a lot of respect for what Duke did it. And what did they, they're 9-3. But how much did Malik play into that? I think a lot.
Right.
A lot. Right. And then below that, Virginia Tech down, you're 500 or less.
Right.
So when I listen to Brett Yormark talk about private money, and I haven't heard anything that's made me believe, or, okay, it's why the Big 12 doesn't have a title sponsor at this point. But you can't tell me that the Big 12, and by extension the ACC as well, doesn't absolutely need a college football super league.
Yeah.
Because I still think, even with the way everything played out and Bama getting left out and all of that insecurity that so many, it seems, in the SEC are feeding off of, you can't tell me that the SEC and the Big 10 are not going to continue to find ways to exclude the Big 12 and the ACC.
Yeah,
because I think they're going to work to do that.
Yeah, I think that you have more resources, and I think that your play on the field is better. And I think that this college football playoff this year is going to be, super important to the future of the format. If Arizona State can come in and get a couple of big wins here and kind of push the envelope and continue to overachieve, that's really going to help the Big 12. But I think if you have another scenario where it's the SEC versus the SEC, or the SEC versus the Big 10 in a national championship game, like that's going to be tough. And I think that's why it was so unfortunate to watch Washington lose to Michigan in that game last year, because the Pac-12 had an opportunity to make a statement on its way out and they just couldn't get it done. And that's unfortunate.
And again, I feel like every day on the show, I play you a Kenny Dillingham bite that just makes me want to, I don't know, snuggle up to his bosom. How does he every day? You know what the hard part for me is? And I know I compare Mike Gundy to everybody, but how is Mike Gundy? How is Dave Aranda? How is it that Kenny Dillingham is saying the things that these supposed building blocks in the Big 12 for a guy who's been in the league for like 13 minutes? How does he continue to kick ass in NIL in the portal and run laps around Stillwater and Waco?
For our guys that are going in the portal, we've met with most of our guys that are going in. Our guys have the opportunity to stay on our football team. Like, they're like, well, we'll go in at the end. I go, no, that's not fair to you to go in after our run is over. Like, I want you to have the best opportunity to find a spot. You can go in right now, day one, we'll help you find a spot and stay on our football team if you want to stay on our football team, and let's go on this ride together the rest of the way. But I didn't want those guys to feel like they had to wait to go in because they wanted an opportunity to have a bigger role for a program until after the CFP. I think that would have hurt their chances. So I made it very clear to the guys that you can stay on the team as long as you do what you're supposed to do, just like you're on the team. Go to meetings, show up, be 5 minutes early, check in, weigh in, go to workouts. Even if you go in the portal here, that doesn't affect me at all. That's just us being on the same page, trying to help you achieve what you want to achieve in your career.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Let me get this right. If I go in the portal at Arizona State, I can stay on the team and be part of the run through the college football playoff. Coach, that can't you misspoke, right? You want me to pack my stuff and get out. That's what you want. You don't want me around anymore. Kenny Dillingham just said, if you're on this team and you basically know, hey, I'm not gonna have a spot here next year, or I'm gonna be a fringe guy. Yeah, man, get in the portal. Let me help you find a job next year. Let me help you find a team next year, but stay around. Be on the team, practice hard, show up, come to meetings, be part of our Sun Devil culture. Enjoy the ride. You've been here all year. I want you to enjoy the rest of the year, and let's find you a spot for next year, kid. How many coaches would say, oh, you want to get in the portal? Get the F out. We don't want you here.
Yeah, well, and I think the difference is clearly that, Kenny Dillingham has the opportunity to say, hey, come along on this college football playoff ride with us, mainly because they win.
I think it's spectacular.
Yeah, and it just brings me back to the hill I've been dying on for more than a year now, that winning matters more than it ever has, and Kenny Dillingham understands that. And Kenny Dillingham understands that, well, if the kid's going to get in the portal, let's at least get, as the old saying goes, all the juice out of the squeeze, right? Let's make sure that if they were in our program, but maybe they're not someone that's starting and they want to find a better opportunity for themselves. Well, hey, they're still contributing, even if it's one big play a game or a play here, a play there.
Right,
that's still going to help us in the college football playoff. And so,
or even if it's just a pat on the back for your buddy, if you're a guy that's not dressing and you're in the portal, but you're with the team and your friend misses a tackle or drops a pass and you're there to pat him on the back, and it's culture,
the vibes.
It's the vibes, the goodness, the Mike Gundy. Are you paying attention?
Yeah. And I would say,
Dave Aranda, are you paying attention? You know what I mean? Like, Tucson, are you paying attention? Right? Like, you're looking at that word you use, vibe and culture.
Yeah.
What's winning in Boulder? Vibe and culture. Did anybody see Crew Wakely at BYU? Crew Wakely is in the portal. The safety at BYU, who we both loved all year.
Yeah.
He said it's with a heavy heart. And I can even get you what he said, but this is a cat that's talking about how tough it is for him to get in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
And that he doesn't want to, and he thanked Kalani, and this is who we are in college football now. And so I go back to this whole thing about the portal and guys getting lopped off from 105 to, and I just say to myself, dudes, I got news for you. This is a bad situation in college football, and Kenny Dillingham is running circles around guys who've been in this league for years and years. And you're asking the question today, is the Big 12 healthy? No, it's not. And it's because the foundation of power conferences is winning football games.
Yeah.
It's winning football games. And in Stillwater, in Waco, in Fort Worth, in Lubbock, they're not winning football games.
Yep.
In Salt Lake City, they're not winning football games. In Kansas City and in Lawrence, Grimes is out at Kansas. Again, he's moving jobs, right? They hire a new offensive coordinator. Again, you're not winning games in Manhattan. This conference isn't winning enough. And we can all sit here and fantasize, but, and again, I go back to Oak State just because I think it's the best example of what's wrong with the culture in the conference. You gave a guy a pay cut. And you said, we really don't want you here unless you take a pay cut. When did you do that? Did you do that in July? No, when did you do that? The day before the portal opened.
Yeah, and you did it under the guise of wanting to take that money that he wasn't going to make and putting it towards NIL, even though you've got a ton of money just sitting there.
I just am amazed by it.
And I think, look, I think ultimately the problem is that if you're not winning, that's obviously going to hurt your recruiting, and it's just going to hurt the whole process. And that's why I say, like, I'm all down with the concept of, hey, like, the Big 12, beats each other up or whatever, but every conference does that. And I think, it comes down to head coaches being able to get above that issue and develop players and have a solid process. And I think Dion has shown you it can be done. Kenny's shown you it can be done, but you got to have the right kind of energy.
Isn't Colorado the only national brand in this conference right now? Because as great as Kenny is in Tempe, Arizona State's not a national brand. And when I say national brand, everybody watched Colorado football this year.
Yeah.
Did everybody see an ASU game? Probably not till the end of the year. Did everybody see a Utah game? No. A BYU game? No. Isn't Colorado football must-watch football? Yes. You got the Heisman Trophy winner to be. You've got who now is almost inarguably going to be the number one quarterback off the board.
Right.
You've got the most gravitational coach in college football talking about, hey, let's make sure that you're not just chasing a bag, but an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only national brand in this conference is Colorado. And that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
How many people watched a Baylor game? TCU game?
How many people, with all due respect,
Texas
how many
Tech.
people are even thinking about those brands?
Not many.
I mean, and I think it's a fair point. Like, how many people watch the game? Well, they may have run into it. Let's be generous and say they ran into it on ESPN here or there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But how many people are like, oh, man, dude, I got to watch Baylor and Tech this week? Or I was because we pay attention to the Big 12 and we do this show. But your garden variety fan, they're not looking at that. What are they looking at? They're looking at the SEC and the Big 10. They're saying, okay, cool. Like, Michigan's on or Ohio State or whoever you're a fan of is on in the morning. I'm going to go run my errands. I'm going to go hit up Costco. I'm going to go do my thing in the afternoon. And then I'm going to get that, that prime time 5:00 slot SEC game. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens in this conference, in this portal, and in the spring portal.
And then we want to wonder why it's an issue that the Big 12 championship game is at 11:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, that's a problem, dude. And I'm not saying that they didn't earn that slot, because they did. I think Arizona State and Iowa State, you're just, with all due respect, you're not a national game at that point. You're a Big 12 centric game. Like,
how many people watched an Iowa State football game this year?
Like Texas, Oklahoma State last year. Okay, it's Texas. You're going to have national eyeballs on that game. It's Quinn Ewers, big time roster. Okay, all right. But it's a problem this year, and it's not an Arizona State problem.
No,
frankly, it's just a Big 12 problem.
It's a lack of brand.
Yeah.
Oak State James says Gundy is making changes, but Monty can't acknowledge this. I said yesterday they hired Todd Grantham.
Hold on. It goes against the narrative,
bro. James, again, I am thrilled that you're here every day. You are one of the most naive football fan. You're what's wrong, James, with Oklahoma State football. And it's not personal. You just don't get it. You told us that Ollie Gordon was a Heisman Trophy caliber running back. He's not. You told us that these wide receivers were the best in the country at one point. They were never that. You keep telling me that last year you were telling us that, this quarterback and that quarterback. You're what's wrong with Oklahoma State football. Your coach took a pay cut so they could fund NIL the day before the portal opened. And you think that's a good thing. And you think firing both of your coordinators is a good thing. It's not. You think bringing Mike Gundy back is a good thing. It's not. You celebrating that is a bad thing, and it's what's wrong with Oklahoma State football.
And then on top of that, and this is the part that kind of grinds me a little bit, you want to say we're manufacturing a narrative that somehow we're creating some type of false narrative about the program. I got news for you, bro. Just because you live around that program or whatever, just because you've been to the stadium, doesn't mean that somehow you're seeing anything different than we're seeing on the field. I got news for you. Their games are on TV. I watch their games. I pay attention to the program.
And have we been wrong about Oak State on just about anything we've said?
Like, what have we missed on, dude? That's what I'm trying to understand is it doesn't bother me that you disagree with us.
No.
That's your opinion.
That's
Like,
what
you're
sports
entitled
talk
to that.
is all about.
So I don't have an issue that you're disagreeing. What I have an issue with is that you're saying we're manufacturing a narrative when the narrative is the truth.
No, we're not. We don't talk in narratives.
Yeah.
We talk in truth.
Yeah.
You don't want to tell the truth about Oklahoma State. They're irrelevant. They lost to Utah. They're irrelevant. They didn't win a conference game. And then when I told you in fall camp after Big 12 Media Day, what did I tell you? Mike Gundy's a problem. He sat there and he justified Ollie Gordon getting a DUI, and you said Ollie Gordon needs to run stairs. And then you went on to have one of the worst seasons in the history of Oklahoma State football. And now you want to celebrate a 78,000-year-old Todd Grantham, who you think brings cultural change. And here's the other part. Mike Gundy's not the one making the change. He's not in control.
Yeah.
And you want to celebrate that he took a pay cut the day before the portal opened. Where are all the rumors about big names coming to Oak State in the portal? Where's the top? You keep telling me, the JUCO guys. Where are the top JUCO guys going to Oak State? They're not. And I just don't know how else I can explain to you that you're either heading in the right direction on an upward trend or you're not. Period. There's no, we're just kind of hanging, period.
Yeah.
You're the same guy that says Baylor had a resurgent season. Do you want to be like Baylor? Because I do not. Baylor beat the worst teams in this conference, and you're celebrating that. You like, you may know this or not. I don't know. Barry Sanders doesn't play football at Oklahoma State. Thurman Thomas doesn't play football at Oklahoma State. Your legendary Brandon Whedon does not. James, you're what's wrong with the Big 12. You're what's wrong with Oak State football. You're apathetic. You're happy that, oh man, Mike Gundy, did you guys see, wow, man, his new visor? Did you guys see the designs on his new, did you see how bright that orange on the new? You go ahead and keep buying visors. You go ahead and you keep telling us how much you know. And that, oh my God, Ollie Gordon is the best running back in the Big 12. He wasn't even top 5 running backs in the Big 12. You do you. You keep your head in the sand. You keep drinking the Kool-Aid. When I'm wrong about Oak State, you let me know. Because I'm happy to stand on business. And let's go back to the tape and talk about, hey, Ollie Gordon doesn't need to miss playing time. He just needs to run stairs. How'd that work out for you? You have no culture. You have no ethics. You have no wins. It's that simple. It is what is. And now you want to pay us $5 to get into it even more. I'm naive. Oak State fell apart this year because the O-line is bad. No, Oak State fell apart because Mike Gundy's not a good football coach.
Yeah.
He's not a leader. He's not a maker of men.
Why?
Guy gets a DUI. Your best player gets a DUI. And you don't make him miss time.
Why can't you say Mike Gundy's the problem, dude?
What did Gundy do? Bring in 5 new O-linemen. Gundy is rebuilding with high school portal and JUCO guys. Great. Where are the portal and JUCO guys? So let me get this right. You're excited that you brought in 5 new offensive linemen. Do you think that's good for your program? You're Oklahoma State football. And you're bringing in, you got to bring in, you don't, here's the thing you don't want to say out loud. It's not 5 new linemen. You need 8 to 12 new linemen. You need 8 to 12. You need new running backs. You need new wide receivers. You need new quarterbacks, and you need new offensive linemen. Other than that, the offense is great. Other than the running backs, the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, and the offensive linemen, you guys are great. James, you're what's wrong with Oklahoma State football. Mike Gundy will never win you a championship. He just won't. If there was ever a culture change that's needed, it's right there. And you gave him a pay cut the day before the portal opened. How do you think that's going to work out? I don't think it's going to work out well. Anyway, Damian Fowler. James, do you make Mike Gundy posters on your ceiling above your bed? Do you have Mike Gundy posters on your ceiling? I'm curious about that.
I just don't know
as well.
why it's a sin to say Mike Gundy's not a great football coach.
He's a has-been.
Like,
That really never was. At some point in this conference, and this is pervasive across the Big 12, at some point in this conference, you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that winning in the regular season is only one part of winning. Do you need to, is it important to win in the regular season? Yes, it is. Does winning in the regular season define success? Not even a little bit.
Nope.
Not even a little bit. Ask BYU. Ask Colorado. Ask Alabama.
Nobody cares if you win 8 games every year, dude.
Nobody cares.
It's not some badge of honor to be the winningest coach in Oklahoma State football history if you win 8 games a year. That's not a badge of honor. And the problem is that it seems like at Oklahoma State it's some amazing feat. And I'm just sitting here saying, look, man, I get it. You guys like Mike Gundy, but he's not somebody that's new age.
No.
He is a has-been is the perfect way to say it. He lives in the old world. He doesn't embrace portal. He doesn't embrace NIL. He doesn't embrace any of the new age stuff that allows you to go out and win football games. So my question that, James, I would like you to answer is, why is it taboo to say Mike Gundy's not a great football coach anymore? Why is that a problem? Why can't we be honest? Why can't we say, hey, you don't have enough depth at offensive line? Alan Bowman was never going to be a great quarterback in his 7th season in your program. There was always going to be some liability there. Your culture was never going to be correct after he did what he did at Big 12 Media Days this past year.
And yet you're celebrating that you just hired Todd Grantham, who didn't get the job at Alabama, who Dan Mullen made a scapegoat at Florida, and who just oversaw one of the worst defenses in New Orleans in the NFL. And you're celebrating that. Okay, let's see how it works out. Let's see how it works out. I mean, you're looking at a defense, and I think this is, and I probably should fact check it before I say something. They're the worst defense in the country. I believe they're 132nd in defense in the country. The worst defense in FBS. Pretty certain. And you hired a guy who Nick Saban didn't hire his defensive coordinator, and Dan Mullen fired at Florida as a scapegoat. After you just went through what is 2 years of one of the worst defenses we've seen. Who are you, Joey McGuire? Like, come on. Anyway. This is why we keep having these conversations about the Big 12, because fans are apathetic now. They don't expect to win. Oak State fans don't expect to win. Baylor fans don't expect to win.
And then are somehow surprised when it doesn't work out for them.
And then I'm the one who doesn't know what I'm talking about.
Well, and you're creating a narrative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I only talk in narratives, not facts.
Yeah.
Is what it is, right? It is what it is. Gundy is a great coach of college football for 20 to 25 years ago, not today. I agree. And he doesn't want to talk about the port. You need a guy. Again, how many times can I play Kenny Dillingham clips? Kenny Dillingham is what football in 2025 is about.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders is what football in 2025 is about.
Yeah.
It's, as much as I love Kyle Whittingham, I have concerns about his ability. Oh, but wait, he's got a guy in Morgan Scalley and now Jason Beck, who are what college football is about in 2025. Kalani Sitake is what college football is about in 2025. Jay Hill is what college football is about. Is Dave Aranda? No. Is Joey McGuire? Not so far. Is Spike Dykes' kid in Fort Worth? Not so far. I mean, what about Matt Campbell? What about, like we could go on and on and on. Man, you either are moving forward or you're moving backward. And in Stillwater, you're certainly moving backwards, but I don't know how much further back you can go.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Delaire. I totally agree. James, do better. Stop living in a fantasy world with your Oak State, with your coach. He's a legend, but his run is done. He needs to move on, and you do too. The Big 12 needs to do better. I think that's the biggest thing, James. You're so unwilling to even bring Mike Gundy to account. What are you going to do when you don't win next year?
Is it because you just don't know who would be next? Is that what the issue is?
The unknown?
Yeah, is it the unknown? I mean,
yeah. Kyle is hanging on by a thread with Utah fans. I think if he has another year like he had this year, but I thought it was funny yesterday, Roche, that there were reports that Cam Rising's not coming back to Utah. No, you don't say. Every other quarterback is in the portal, and you think Cam Rising's coming back. No, he's not. Jace Beck is bringing his guy from New Mexico.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are in this league and you start looking at the quarterbacks in the portal and you ask yourself, well, what am I going to do here to make sure that I have an opportunity to get one of the best quarterbacks in the portal? I would think you had better have a guy like Jason Beck who's ready to develop guys and put them in the NFL. And Kyle Whittingham has a history of making sure that his guys get to the NFL.
Right.
But if you look at the guys in the portal and you start looking at, just with Malik Murphy entering the portal, that's a guy that you're like, yep, I got to have it. But Devon Dampier from New Mexico, I would be stunned if he does not end up at Utah.
Right.
I mean, do you understand that Dampier emerged as one of the best playmakers in college football?
But look at like with this situation, when we're talking about Utah fan being frustrated with Witt, and you're comparing that to, or people are comparing that to Oklahoma State, the difference is that Kyle Whittingham said, okay, this is the kind of season we had. We are not good enough offensively, not just with this year, but just generally. Hey, we're not good enough offensively to go out and contend to win the Big 12. We need better quarterback play. We need better line play and better offensive scheming. So what did he do? Fired the OC, brings in Beck. Beck's going to bring his quarterback,
who accounted for almost 4,000 yards of total offense, including 1,100 running.
You're going to be a different team. You're
19 rushing touchdowns. 390 yards and 5 touchdowns against Arizona.
There's stuff to be excited about.
Yeah, and then but is Malik Murphy going to Oak State? Right, he's going to Oak State, right? He got in the portal from Duke to go to.
Is Oak State even on the list?
To Oak State, right?
No, it's probably not.
Are you sure? Are you?
This is my point with the Big 12. Whether you're looking at the Big 12 from the perspective of, hey, who's going to be the first team in current day Big 12 play to get to the national championship game? Not even win it. Notice I'm not saying win it. Just get to the game. Well, TCU did. Okay. But now that's looking like a distant memory in a one-off, hey, particular circumstance season.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about like straight up, one loss, Big 12 champion team getting to the college football playoff and getting to the national championship game. Who's going to do that? Because I'm telling you, in the best scenario for the Big 12, that would be Okie Light or Texas
100%.
Tech or a original OG Big 12 team. But if it's Kenny or if it's Dion or, my God, if it's Kyle Whittingham, that's not going to be a great look. Just the same way, and I have to say this, it's not a great look for the Big 10 that Oregon won in year one. That's not a great look for the Big 10 at all on any level.
And if Ohio State loses that first round game, what do you say if you're an Oak State fan when Ohio State loses in the first round and they clean house in football? You didn't even win a conference game and you're not firing Mike Gundy.
That was the amazing part to me, is that it was even in question whether he'd be fired or not. That they were frankly willing to even negotiate with him. Because what you're saying is, hey, rather than just pay him out, buy him out, and send him on his way, we're willing to put him through the ringer and in a sense kind of bring down the legacy that he had built at Oklahoma State and say, yeah, you're going to have to take a pay cut because we need to move that money over to NIL, as if his pay cut money would cover all of your NIL budget.
And then Kendall Daniels got in the portal.
Yeah. Like, come on.
So Todd Grantham comes in. You hire Todd Grantham, this great savior of a defense, and arguably your best defensive player gets in the portal.
So that's what I'm saying. The whole setup, the whole situation in the Big 12 and at Oklahoma State, they're mirrors of each other. The Big 12 has a great commissioner, has a couple of really solid brands, but has not yet figured out in the current college football playoff format, or in the college football playoff format, I should say, how to be successful. And then we sit here and we wonder why Brett Yormark's talking about, hey, we don't want third-party influence. We want, to control our destiny, but we just need more money. We need more resources.
Yeah, and I think the best part, you hit the nail on the head when you said, I think there's a lot of executives in sports who don't fire guys because they don't know who to replace them with.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at a guy like Mike Gundy, it's not a small move to fire Mike Gundy. It's the right move. It's not a small move.
Yeah.
You don't willy-nilly fire a Kyle Whittingham. But is it a big move to fire Dave Aranda? I don't think it is. Is it a big move if Joey McGuire doesn't win significantly more games and have a significantly better defense next year? Is it a big move to fire Joey McGuire? I don't think it is. Is it a big move? It's not like you have legendary coaches that you're firing. I understand it with Oak State, but you didn't win a conference game this year, and you lost dudes all over the place.
And at what point do you start looking at athletic directors in the Big 12? At what point do you start asking, because again, and no one seemingly is talking about this right now, but I feel like it's the most important point, which is football is what pays for athletics. So you're 0-9 in conference, and you think that that's okay, that somehow we're good with this.
Damian Fowler makes a great point. He's an Iowa fan. Look at the Ferentz family. Old school ways don't win anymore. Iowa or Oak State won't get better until they make changes. And think about everything that Kirk Ferentz has done for Iowa football. You want to talk about firing a legend. That's a guy. That's a big move that I think everybody realizes should happen. That's a tough move. That's a tough move. Brandon Butler, good morning. Utah already has gotten rid of the bottom half of the roster, the running back room and the quarterback room. Is there a quarterback on this roster anymore? I don't believe there is. And maybe Spencer Fano is probably your biggest get because he's staying. That's a huge win, right? I'm ecstatic about Beck rebuilding the Utes offense seemingly top to bottom.
Yeah, but that's kind of my point, Roche, is that at least at Utah, even with all the trouble you had in the injury department this year, you can see, okay, hey, they're clearly moving in a direction. They're saying, hey, we got to get better on this side of the ball. Like, we got to stop having a situation where we can't even score, 10 points. Injuries be damned. Because that's the bigger thing. All Utah fan, and I'm not saying this is you, Roche, but a lot of Utah fans on Twitter and just around want to be like, oh, well, our offense is brutal. We had all these injuries. But the thing that you don't want to say is, hey, the SEC's got injuries too. The Big Ten's got injuries too, but they're not putting up 10 points a game. So you got to have more depth. You have to do it at a higher level. There has to be a higher bar of accountability in the Big 12. And I think that Utah operates at that level. That's why you're seeing all the changes. That's why you're seeing all the movement and the momentum and the firings and the hirings and the portal guys and all this stuff. But it's also the same reason I don't have faith that Mike Gundy and company are going to be able to turn this around or somehow just turn into some prolific program in the portal.